the moment in which you harvest and eat your own corn, that is the moment in which all the Mayan calendar is going to make sense to you. But in those days, I didn't listen to that. I really didn't pay that much attention to that because I was reluctant to go at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the cornfields. It's very cold over there. And I was like, why do I have to do it there? I was the complaining one. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this? And he was pointing at some stars, as to say, look at that star, that is blah blah blah, whatever. Look at that tree, look at the wind, and stuff like that. And but I was so reluctant. Then I enjoy it. I learned to do it. One day he also mentioned, now you're in the last part of your apprenticeship in the Mayan calendar. You're about to receive your ceremonial paraphernalia in a ceremony, but I think, and he said something like this, I think we are going to, I don't know, like, you need more. You need more experience. We will wait more 9 months. And I was like, oh my God. And well, we did it. I couldn't say, but in those times, I really enjoyed it. Go to the mountains. Now I was very adapted to climate and everything. He was telling me stuff like, "Do you see the color in the leaves? Look at this. Look at this other plant." Stuff like that. That usually you cannot see the connection. The next 9 months, he said exactly the same. Exactly the same. He says, we're going to wait for another 9 months. And I said, oh, because I was also preoccupied not about me or my personality or not about my world, but I was kind of preoccupied about money, because I was living literally as a peasant, as a farmer over there in the mountains, and I was like, well, now I will have something else, and I began to apply my knowledge on healing to get some extra money. And I performed an amazing healing on a knee of a friend, and he told everybody like, okay, this Ababian, he knows how to cure the bones. And suddenly I was so full of people. People were waiting for me for hours, and I was doing all kind of healings. And when he saw that, and that I was now with my own discipline to go to the cornfield, to harvest, to select the best seeds and everything, he says, now is the moment. We are going to do it now. You are going to receive all your paraphernalia and everything, and you are going to be distinguished as my apprentice, but as my inheritor, he says. After that ceremony and everything, I was so profoundly happy because in that way, which was very beautiful, I understand different dimensions, not only of the Mayan calendar. All those pieces came just in one single chat with this woman that is my friend. That is my friend, and she says, "Well, that your teacher made best. Later, you begin to wave your own thoughts, and that's one of the most beautiful thoughts, and that is the rule of Nawals, the compositions of triad ideas and knowledge."
It's a good connection with Nawals.
In the sense that Nawal Bats is the Nawal that helps you to unify, to unite, to get the dots connected, and to understand everything like in a weaving.
It's great. Yeah, I think I can see it in the connecting dots or weaving something together.
Yeah, that's facts. And then you can see something. Then it comes E. You connect the dots, then you begin the path. When you realize things in the path, then it comes Ah, change and transformation. Then you change, then you transform yourself. Then it comes Ishbalam, then you know the feminine um, strength, the energy mood, the energy spirit of the world. Then, following the Mayan calendar, then you find the king, the eagle, the masculine spirit, character. Then, if you continue, you go to Ahmak. And Ahmak is complementary. Is the one that unites the opposites, complementary opposites as the previous ones, feminine and masculine, to produce a new stuff. The baby, the results, the composition. Then, by the way, falling in love and entanglement. Then you go to Noh, the thought, the thoughts, the ideas, even the obsession, the composition, decision making. But if it, but then it follows the hash. You like making an announcement, like saying, well, that's too much thoughts. Let's cut what is necessary. Let's make this easier. Let's cut. Let's burn something. Let's cut the obsession. Then, after cutting, that is the hash, that let's heal this. Then it comes Kawuk, the clarity, the knowledge, intuition, the lighting, the clear mind, the clear spirit, and then it comes Hunahpu. The next is Hunahpu, and then you can say after all these processes, Hunahpu is the warrior that battles in the obscurity to come back again in light. So I give you, in this case, the first 10 Nawals about how they compose. For example, a full conceptualization of how to read the days in session, how days can be read also as a big process. Did you get the idea? Got the idea?
Yeah, yeah, sort of. I've uh, I've thought about this idea many times and tried to comprehend it, correctly. But my ability to put it into practice is still sleeping. I don't really have a good feeling for how to put it into use.
Well, I'm going to give you a key point to understand. There's what you can do is to make from your own archives an organization of the Mayan calendar to trecenas, through trecenas, by making an scheme, literally. You can begin in any point. Let's say the Humbats, trecena, and then organized just the trecenas, the Hun till the 13 bat a eshekin afna no hashku hunakpu imosh iragabal, the first trecena humbats oshlahu agabal, and make the organization of the number ones, the number 7, and the number 13. Then by only by taking into account what are the meanings of the 13s, only by the meaning of the 13s, then you will see how compositions of, let's say, energies, let's go a little bit new age, the compositions of energies are going to lead you to that 13. In that way, for example, for us in the common days, in the common life, said when something happens, good or whatever, we said, which is this trecena? Then you go to the 13 to understand the process. You can understand that anything is isolated, as I said in my book, and if everything has a composition, pertains to a bigger system, or is a part in a concept and a full conceptualization, if you wanted to say it also like that. And then by analyzing which is the 13 of the trecena, you can see how the little pieces, the other 12 nawals, begin to give you the comprehension. That's something that I did several times as making schemes and stuff like that, but it's only necessary to organize the Mayan calendar to trecenas, and then you are going to see how even beyond what is our actual way of perceiving the world, that is very, by the way, is very fast. We are aware of 4, 5, 6 seconds per moment, and even day by day, sometimes it's difficult to hold everything that you perceive or something. But then you, little by little, you begin to see how the trecenas can help you to understand processes, the processes in which people is in. And sometimes you're going to see it, you're going to begin to discover so much stuff by doing that. For example, this trecena is ruled by Teacha, the gray cut. So no wonder people is having, not everybody does, not always applies. It depends on your own nawal. But this is a trecena in which, for you to heal, for you to cut obsessions, you to cut the accumulated, you can heal, you can take off all that baggage from your back.
Hold on, let's because what you said was number 1, number 7, and number 13. So, for example, let's say we have to cut number 13. So, how can I incorporate number 1 and number 7 into the scheme?
Well, it's a way I'm not going to say anything about 7 till you do it, because if not, I'm going to give you everything, and you are going to get lazy about this.
Me lazy?
No,
Yeah.
I know how the mind plays, and the number 1 is going to mean the incitation, the first step, the first thought, if you want to say it like that, the beginning, initiating, ignition, all the conceptualization of number 1, the Nawal number 1. And then you can see that, like how day by day entangle from the starting point, the ignition, to go to the 13, the accumulation. So you can, in that way, by analyzing the number 1 and the number 13, you already have the ignition and the accumulation, where everything, all these and these nawals are interweaving processes to build
Right.
the
So,
13.
okay, I get the concept, but the practice I don't get because, for example, let's say I'm sick because I'm eating too much, and this is a process that's been going on for, many, many months, right? Or drinking too much or something. And so the trecena, where number 13 is Teacha, the big cut, then in this tracene, I have the ability to cut this drinking, for example. How does number 1 connect to number 13? Is number 1 the decision to cut, or how
Now,
can I practice this scheme?
well, number 1 is literally also what I said, is the incitation. It's like what attracts you, what suddenly has this light in front of you for you to start something, is the incitation. It's as when you're bored and suddenly you have the idea, the incitation to do something. Now you have to put it in a broad or bigger scheme of action. For example, as to say, for example, the first trecena that I said, that is the humbats and the oshla. The humbats is the incitation to do something, or to connect the dots, or to begin to interweave ideas. It's a moment in which You will want to understand something. You will want to organize and put into action something. Little by little, you're going to see, for example, you begin with an idea or the desire to produce or to do something, home bats. Then you go to E, the path, but it's ruled by number two, so it's a little bit retracted. You have to go a little bit back to the back to make calculations. Yes, you have an idea, but now you have to calculate, right? Then what
Yep.
is next? Then what is next? The number three and the transformation. Then you have an incitation, then you have a calculation, and then, yeah, then you are going to change. Then it follows Ish Balam, number four, Ish Balam. Then it is settling everything that is material to begin to do stuff. Then it follows Tzikin, and Tzikin is to do to how can I say for Tzikin? There's a keyword. Then after settling all the material that comes from Ishmaelam, the next Tikin is going to deliver, is going to spend and engender in that sense. Then it follows Wakib Ahmak, the six of the Ahmak. You put the balance in between for everything, to consider everything, to ponder about. And then it follows seven no, the thought, the idea. Once again, was hash, cutting, and getting clean, like getting your space clean. Then Belechet Kawuk, to have the idea in the inside, to have the clarity or the vision, but inside yourself. Then it comes Lahuk, the number 10 of Hunahpu. Then it is to bright, to fight, to do it, to fight for what you want. Then is 11 Imosh. Then you have to dissipate on clarity or craziness or whatever that is not adjusting. Then it follows it, the final impulse, the encourage, the passionate, to arrive in that process to the Oshlahu, or the 13 Akabal, that is the clarity. It's a process. Every Nawal is going to put a little bit of like in a big formula, is going to put a little bit of the ingredients to arrive to the
Right.
big stuff. Now, answering the other thing, how can I use this? Well, by knowing that there's a flow, a connecting flow of Nawals giving you what is the mood, what is the spirit, what is the personality, if you want to say that, for the day. But then you have to follow one of the most basic Maya rules that exist. And this basic Mayan rule says that you are not learning or understanding the rules or the flow of the universe. No, you are not understanding or learning about the universe to control the universe. You are going to learn and to be knowledgeable about the universe to enter into its flow. You don't learn to control or to do the things for your own stuff. No, what you do is to study to enter into the flow. So
This is
what's
well. This is. I think this is an important point to to talk about for a minute, or thing to point out is I think part of the reason why it's takes so much time and is kind of hidden and obscure, because it is actually. I've been trying to solve some of these mysteries for a decade, and is it sort of weighs your heart, because what you're talking about is somebody's heart. Like, is your heart entering the flow, or is your heart trying to control?
Oh yeah,
And
that's important.
yeah, well, I know that's important. So I think that's sort of part of the why it takes so long to learn some of these things, or it's so difficult to learn.
Let me give you more, elaborate a little bit more. What we have been inheriting in the Western world, even in the now, let's say, dominant ideologies, and in the post-industrialized and the open economies stuff, that in a way they also are interweaving concepts or and ideas about success and what is to be successful, is that the hegemonic world is that although not plainly, not sometimes plainly subconscious, but subconsciously or both, we are told to have the control. And for example, when you go to the university and you do learn something, the immediate idea is to apply it, to make a change or to blah blah blah. But there's always this idea that you have to manipulate, that you have to control, that you have to use the other to adapt to you. They come to you, or you do control. You do have to always play the master of everything. And there's too many people that also enters into the Mayan calendar, especially when people is interested in ceremonial work like healing or doing ceremonies. That people would think that all the knowledge is to adapt the knowledge to what you want, what you need, what you expect. And that is total mistake. You do understand the flow of time. As for example, as I told you, I give you an example, a very brief, right? But an example of how time works and how the Nawals are connected into a conceptualization that also give you a hint that is not spirits like or necessarily spirits in the sense of a dark magic or stuff like that. You can even say that those are forces of the universe, the structure of the universe, the character of the days, the face of the day is also beyond our obsession
Yeah.
for always making everything human.
I
Then you
think a
can
good art. Yeah, I mean, it's a structure of consciousness that explains it
exactly.
really nice. Yeah, really nicely.
Yeah, that you say it perfectly. That is mostly consciousness. That's why in my book I also I erase everything that is connected to spirits or even to souls. It's a way
Right.
of consciousness. Then you can see that there's a flow. And by the way, as for example, when I said no, let me think about this. No as obsession, Tihash as cutting, and Kawuk as getting light, then you can see that there's a continuity, that they follow a constant. And the point is that you have to realize that that is the way the universe works, or the days, even for I can say it's so sophisticated and so mathematically precise that works for planet Earth. But I haven't been abducted by UFOs yet, and I don't know if this scheme applies in another planets. Because so sorry, it's a joke, but this applies so good in here. It applies very beautifully in here, and also in the dreams realm, in which you can follow the stuff, but it's so precise that you can see mathematically even how this consciousness shifts. Then the first step is to approach, to understand, to sense. But then, instead of manipulating or adapting that to you have to enter into the flow. And it is going to be easier because sometimes we are very, very obsessed to get what we want in the moment that we want, or that we want this specific stuff. And there's people that says to me, for example, things like this day was Teacha and I wasn't healed. I was expecting. Well, you were expecting. You didn't enter the flow. By the way, the previous flow, you have to go little by little with all the days, knowing, sensing how this consciousness, these Nawals affects people, affects you. You can make statistics to realize that affectation, or which Nawals, for example, uh, have more power on you, for example, and how they apply, how can you understand your own personality and character to them through them. But then you have to follow the flow. You are not the master. You are not really. We are not the masters. We are not really. We always modify, apply, adjust, and pretend to have all the control. In this, knowing this Mayan knowledge, you have to go in this way. That's why it is one of the key rules. You are not going to understand the universe to manipulate it. You are understanding the universe to go into its flow.
I like it. It's like taking your shoes off at the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a big thing in Japan. It's very important that you take your shoes off at the door. Yeah. Or and maybe in the West we would say you'd have to, check your hat.
Yeah. Well,
I appreciate you talking about this point. I think it's important philosophy, and yeah,
yeah,
seriously, this is a very, very key point, and it's very important. And so, and we haven't not actually talked about it in any detail yet. So it's good to really flesh it out. And again, a lot of this stuff is, hopefully for the people who enjoy this, and I know that there are, a good handful of people that do enjoy this. It's really something to chew on for a while, and you just stew on it for, I don't know, even years. Yeah, it's great. Lots of things to ponder. That's what I always enjoy talking to you about. After I talk to you every time, there's always something very interesting for me to think about. Over the course of time, usually.
yes, well, and that is another proof of what I have been saying during all this time. But we have been having years now of podcast.
It's true. It's
and
true.
now 3 years later, I'm seeing one of the most basic rules.
Yeah, well, it's hard to articulate. That's why I'm transcribing this, is because like when you see it on paper, you can see it from far away. But when you're trying to describe it,
yes,
it takes forever. Yeah.
Well, that's true, but the beautiful thing is all that knowledge inside all these words, and not because I'm saying it's because this is my knowledge, not my knowledge.
Sure. I know.
Well, this is another proof of what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's my knowledge. No, it's the Mayan knowledge, and I'm going into that flow. And because um what I'm saying also in another sense is like you can see how this world is composed now of anxious people, frustrated people. We are programmed, even pushed, not necessarily directly by the ideas of success, the ideas of several ideas of what is to have a path, or what do you have to do in your life, or blah 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 blah, everything that is ideals. But also you can see people severely frustrated, intoxicated, ill in some different ways, not only in the body but in the mind, and blah blah blah. And sometimes beginning to and you can get, and by analyzing Nawals and everything, that is this obsession to have the control, this obsession to use the other as your tool, for example. And even for example in Mayan, the nature is not called natural resources, because that is a way in which, from the language, you are saying those are mine. It's
Yeah.
natural resources. It's mine. It's for my whatever. And in the Mayan ways, we said elements of life, and that it makes us totally different elements of life. You're going. You go to the mountains and you don't kill just because you want to kill. You don't go for sports to kill. It's an element of life, as you are also, but it's not yours.
No,
God will.
this is one of my favorite philosophers talks about this is objective learning versus subjective learning.
And by the way, well, now that you're talking about philosophers, Chomsky is also has played some good ideas about how language shapes the consciousness and everything. We're so accustomed to think that the other is our tool and that you are learning to use the other for your own benefit, that no wonder the world is full of frustrated people. And I haven't given classes on the Mayan calendar or even nothing. You saw how in the podcast I just jumped for ideas, but in this case, this should be now the first. I'm going to put a mental note that I have to remember people that entering into the world is not to manipulate, but to enter into the flow. And it's very beautiful, by the way. It's very, very, very
And
amazing
then
when you
and
do that.
jumping next to the core. And another thing you said today that I thought was really profound was, until you've sown your own corn, you haven't really had a chance to learn, the very basic of the Mayan calendar. And it just made me think, well, I've never grown corn before. And I mean, I could easily, find a place to put a corn and grow it, just just to try, So I thought this was a very good thing that you said today.
Well, yes, and by the way, this history is a little bit more it's more complex because well, I still have a garden full of cacti, and now, by the way, I'm a passionate cacti lover, and cacti,
Yeah,
and
cacti. Okay.
years later, years before this, I was using the seeds of the cacti. I knew how to prepare dirt. I have to prepare fertilized organically. I do have in my garden like cacti that is 15 meters high. It's amazing how, and in my supposition, and I knew how much water, I knew how much sun exposure. I know how when to harvest a little bit, when they strategies they use to attract with the flowers, even bats, insects, colibris and stuff. And I thought that I was really skilled. I thought that I really understood the way the water, the humidity, sun, and everything play. But that was not true. I just follow manuals and I learned hints and stuff, but I didn't really knew that. And I loved my cacti, and I talked to them and everything. And but when we went to see the corn and especially I think because it's going to be what you eat, by the way, um, everything changed. And my teacher was amazed that I knew how to prepare the dirt and everything, and that I wasn't like I was not reluctant to get all dirty doing the work, but I already applied what I knew with cacti. But then you can see when something that is alive and that you follow all the cycle, because if you plant a cacti, well, you're going to see 6 years later the first flower, as to say. It can be like 20, 15. But when you follow these 9 months of a living being that is growing, assisted by you also, mostly for nature, but you are the keeper of the cornfield. when you when you saw and you begin and you see all the processes this living being is doing in front of you, then everything makes sense. Not only because you take care, or not only because of the benefits, but because you are looking at that. It is even not that fantastic how to say that. For example, I remember in one misty mountain that there was this high altitude corn that one day I was so exhausted that I went to sleep in the basement under a tree, and I have this kind of a dream state in which I was like looking at the corn, looking at the stars, and how happy they are. And all these misty mountains and everything, and it was such a beautiful experience because um, uh, I the most wonderful things happens in front of you, but you don't want to see it. It was, and I even took a picture of this, and it was amazing that there was a sudden stop of my thoughts to see how wonderful they were all interconnected. I could see happy corn and stuff like that, and it was so beautiful. And I wasn't high, and I wasn't anything. I was just wanted to sleep a little bit. I was tired. So beautiful. Suddenly, then you understand the same or apply the same knowledge for everything that you want. And as I said, there's an obsession for control and manipulate that no wonder everybody is so frustrated with their lives, or even there's people frustrated with success. and well, let's go with the flow. Don't try to manipulate. And I'm going to go back to what I was explaining previously. Then you understand the trecena. Then you see the consciousness of the Nawals, the energy, if you want, the characteristics, and then you will see a flow to which you can enter, to which you can adapt yourself to go with, and not necessarily to plan because of the convenience of any given day for any given stuff. I even in this moment, I even I'm going to tell you something kind of personal. This last recena was Oslahu Khan, and Khan means fury. And yes, I was so surrounding of raging stuff that, believe me, the very very Oslahu Khan, I really said, well, this is the last day. Now it will begin Hunkame. Hunkame applies to suffering, the inner suffering, or being rejected in that sense. And I was like that. Now, after passing some of these days in the Mayan calendar, now I know that finally the trecena ruled by Teacha, that is the cutting, is cutting everything. Everything has begun to resolve. Even there was this situation that was very funny because my car, I took my car to the mechanic and he couldn't find why something was not working properly. Then I said to him, I'm going to go back. Just give me the car. I can deal with this. That is not electrical problem. And then I returned today, and I said, well, yes, now it's another trecena. Today he's going to get it. In 1 hour, it was resolved. Things like that. Little by little. Maybe this, in this moment, sounds very exaggerated on my part to say that, but that's the way it happens. So, well, I have had another idea that I haven't said that maybe it's going to make sense now to June. I made an example of how a trecena works, and I did it briefly, right? It was not that much. Right. But by doing my example, about the car and the shifting of consciousness, energy, character, spirit of the next trecena, how I was very confident that I was like, okay, I took my car for reparation under the bad trecena. I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to get frustrated. I'm not going to see. Now it for me, right? It looks very obvious the reason everything was failing. Along and raging against me and stuff like that. Then it begins Junkame, and that is not the solution. That is just like the release of tears after being under pressure. But in these days, everything has been resolved. So since the first moment, I wasn't upset. I didn't get frustrated or even angry with the world, with God, with. I didn't say anything. I was smiling, and that's it.
Can you stop? Did you just associate Hunkeme with the release of tears?
In this case, yes.
In this case, only because of Oshlahu Khan, or is Keme
Yeah. Yeah,
often is
that's why.
Keme often associated with the release of tears? That's my question.
Well, you can if number one is the beginning, also it could be releasing, right? It's another way in which things.
Sure, especially from a big fury, and then some big change that's a release. Yeah, that makes sense.
No. What?
The release. I understand how number one can be a release.
Yes, well, you can see it. It's something release is when some or unleash could or can also apply is when
Yeah.
something is stocked or is tied and suddenly it begins to flow, release,
Yeah.
walk to get the movement. So it's associated with number one also. And the
Okay.
Oshlafuf and the 13 Kant Resena is so full of fury that no wonder for the people that, even in my case, things went so wrong during this Tresena. I got raging gossiping against me, and I understood the situation. I said, okay, this is the accumulation of can.
Accumulation a good word for number 13?
Yeah, you can say it
Okay.
like accumulation.
It's a good conceptualization. Accumulation.
Well, I told you that um, um, uh, the linear mind always thinks in linear as in linear tries to apply everything in that way. So when you go from 1 to 13, 1 is incitation and the 13 is accumulation. But the most important is number 7. But that's something that I said that I'm not going to talk in this moment. You have to make first the other exercise. Then, but anyways, if you think about this, the 13 is the biggest, the bigger. But that does not mean it's the most important. It's the one that is going to give you the conceptualization of how the trecena works and how the Nawals interweave consciousness and time and space and whatever. Is the one that is going to help you, but it's not the most important, although it's the accumulation. It's just the accumulation. It's going to give you the big key to understand.
Well, it's a good exercise, and I'm looking forward to trying it. And I'll ask you about it in a few months and see if I can understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, and um and there's no need to hurry up. You just do it with
No.
love and everything, and steal some time here and there from your activities, and because in a way, all those comprehensions processes are not for the fast going of how our mind plays.
Right.
Is something that has to be internalized. And little by
That's a
little,
good
all,
word. That's a good word. Internalized is a good word.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I can't rush through it, is because if I can't internalize it, I don't understand it. And it's not no use to me. So I'm slowly trying to internalize everything, and it takes a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun. It's actually, there's so much fun to be had along the way. It's very fascinating and exciting and fun, and I just can't thank you enough for everything that you do. Transcribing all of these past episodes is going back and rediscovering so many lessons and jewels of information. And I remember actually just recently I was transcribing a part. You were talking about your cacti. And that's why I laughed when you said it today, because I just was doing it like yesterday. You were talking about your cacti and how they're connected to your dreams. And
Remember
well,
that?
yeah. So when you said you said it, so it's in the transcribe, and so I got to see it again and go, oh yeah, that's very interesting. And so when you said your cacti, I thought, yeah, the dream cacti, and so it's very funny. Do you want to talk about that?
Well,
Say something more about that. It's a very funny idea.
well, there's something very peculiar because what happened was that not all the cactus they come from different places, so they have different needs for the sun, for water, composition of dirt, and everything. So I made several mistakes. I got some of them putrefacted after applying so much water, and I have to learn. Then I began to travel, so some of them has to adapt it to Mother Earth once again, not to me. Some survived and everything, but then I returned home to see all my disaster, what I was left behind. And I was very, very preoccupied about how much water or which days I should apply water. And then I remember having a couple of dreams about dreaming a specific cactus. And I know that I have to go to the garden to fully do for hydrate all the garden, especially when I dream that someone steals my cacti. If I dream that,
That's
if I dream
hilarious.
that, it is the sign that the cactus is asking me for water. Then I go and there's no more
Water.
need for to go or do additional stuff like sometimes you can buy also vitamins for them. So what I do now, I just go to sleep, and if I receive the dream, I go and water the cactus, the different ways of the different species of cactus. But now I make no effort. What I said, my manipulation, my stuff, because the manual says so. I made so much mistakes. Now I just wait for the hint. I just wait for the dream, and I'm very happy about that. My house also
Good.
do the same. Whenever I dream that I have to move or that someone wants to move to my house or that I made a wrong decision changing to an apartment or something like that, is that the house needs something, that the house needs something fixed. And now I just wait for the dream, and that is following the flow. Just be enough conscious, but at the same confident that these other ways of consciousness are going to talk to me, and they do. For example, now there's no time, but you can use the previous recording, the previous podcast. You can use the keywords that I prepare for the Nawals. You can use the keywords and you can connect then, as to say, the conceptualization that goes, how the keywords interwave consciousness and reality. And you can go as for example, when I said no thought or obsession, Teacha, cutting and healing. No has decision making and healing goes well, and Kawuk can be like the vision or the clarity. but it could be also Noh as obsession, Tihash as cutting, bad words or wrong words, and then Kawuk as gossiping. See? There you can see all of that functioning. It's just to go to that, and believe me, the effort to produce the keywords. Well, I'm not going to play my horn. It's the Mayan knowledge. It's the Mayan
It's
knowledge,
true.
but those
No, it's
but
true. It's traditional knowledge.
those keywords function perfectly to see the conceptualization day after day. You can choose any one of them and choose the next, and you're going to see a process. And then I remember when I discovered that, I was like, whoa! This sounds so intelligent, so clever. And years later, I was like, well, this is Mayan, but it's not Mayan. It's the universe. It's the way it works. Now, to say what I was saying, then when you saw the trecena function, then you can see all the trecenas functioning by understanding the small little pieces that take you to the 13. Then, what you can do is to understand how every 13 is working in that sense. That's a bigger exercise. That's a bigger but beautiful and amazing way to see processes in the universe.
To connect the different 13s?
Yes. Because, for example, as I have been saying, Noh obsession, Tihash cutting, Kawuk clarity. In this case, they are the one that follows the next. Noh, then Tihash, then Kawuk. But when you analyze the 13s, you are going to see that the next 13 is not the next in the Mayan calendar. But you can see, and this is something that I love, is 20 trecenas that explain you the universe in conceptualization of processes as a systematic, as a system of purposeness, as a system of consciousness, and the way
That's a good word, yeah.
And the way in which they really, really express beautiful conceptualizations of systems of consciousness or systems of understanding, living. You can put it in different dimensions and realms.
Yeah, it's I think a system of the development of consciousness, or the motion of consciousness, or the organization of consciousness, or something like that. Yeah, it's
When
very, very profound. You did, yeah.
In the book, I said it as that in the book, one of the key rules for understanding the Mayan knowledge, observations, philosophical key elements is that anything is isolated and that everything pertains to a system. When you saw the components through the number 13, you can see every element that leads you to that 13. When you analyze the 20 different 13s, then you got the most amazing and beautiful system of dynamics of consciousness. Is the most amazing, but you have to go step by step, baby steps, because if not, you are going to get obsessed or something. You have to go literally, little by little, and with the love of knowledge to see which is not only the meaning of a certain event given day, as for example, today, well, what was today? The path, and now changing, transformation. But then you begin to see differences between the numbers and how they apply to the nominals, and then you can see the system of a trecena, and then if luckily you go little by little, then you can see the system of the trecenas, and that's something amazingly. That's something that you get in love with your mind. Your mind got in love with that, and then it's your body. And as we said, by internalizing what is happening, then everything is going to be like whoa, 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 whoa.
That's really great. Good description of the past. I like it. I think it's going to be really helpful, certainly for me, and hopefully for some other people too.
Well, by the way, this is something that nobody has been read. There's no
Right.
book
I know.
that about it. There's no guru. There's no Arguelles follower. There's no one that has been talking about this as a system of process of a meaning and consciousness. You can see pieces by pieces by pieces, little by little, Nawal by Nawal. At the end, it's 2060 Nawals, and then you get overwhelmed. But
Right.
in reality, looking at the organizations, you are going to see the most beautiful picture of how consciousness organizes the self processes. This is another way to say it. And and
Yeah,
I was
very
remembering
good.
something. I was remembering something. One day I was with a spiritual guide. He was previously a religious leader, but then following what is sometimes a shamanic calling. He was alone in the mountains. And he couldn't return to the house because he had by stepping in a wrong way, he got injured in one leg. So he couldn't walk because he got this big inflammation. And then he had to stay in the mountain and to be close to a little cave to protect himself. He was having so much he was very cold. So he began to collect branches and stuff to try to warm himself. When he was in the middle of the night, kind of getting sleeping, he suddenly listened to this roar, like
Oh no.
it was a jaguar roaming in front of him, and the jaguar, and then they both discover each other. And then he says that in that moment, obviously, in a way, he saw his death. And he thinks that in that moment, he thinks that the jaguar saw that he was so scared. And although he was a religious leader, he didn't pray to God or anything. He was just like amazed of looking at this beautiful animal in front of him, this beautiful, strong and big animal in front of him, and that the jaguar, in a maybe a magical jaguar, in a beautiful movement, just go to smell him, like something like that, and the jaguar just went away. This for this man that was a religious leader, it was very important for him that in the moment of truth, he didn't think about God. He was looking at the one that at this beautiful and magnificent animal that was going to take his life for sure. And then he knew that, and then he says that he began to say that we need now to ask compassion for God. That compassion is between us and has to be only a human thing. And then all the pieces in his life begin to make sense for him after that. And he began, and then he went to the patio of the house to onboard all the objects that belonged to his father, that was a spiritual guide, and he began to walk in the our path. He was very good to learn, and it was sometimes very funny to see how sometimes he really fight heavy inside him to try to make a balance between his previous very religious life and now this life without God. And sometimes he even constructed very beautiful ideas. One day we were coming back for a ceremony,
Yeah.
and I was talking to him about precisely religion and spirituality, and he says there's a new way in which I think stuff, and I said what? I think that if we do want to think about God, God is the calendar, he said, and I said why? Yes, is the God, but human consciousness cannot deal, let's say, with more than 1 day per experience. So it's like a God made of 2060 faces. So you cannot see the full nature of this God.
Yeah.
And I said, oh.
Yeah.
I said, okay, it's a God beyond our human time. The calendar
Yeah.
is. And he says, yes, that's the idea. And I said, oh, well, I like your idea. As I said to you, this is things that you're not going to hear in any place. This is the real knowledge from the mountains. And by the way, the most attractive than any other thing that has been said.
Yeah, and also today's lesson is actually the very, very perfect introduction. I'll send it to you when I write it down. The
Okay, perfect.
entering into the flow thing. Yeah.
The other thing that is associated also is that you can think it also as a river. Yeah, time flowing like a river, right?
Right.
Um, if you really know the flow, you are going to use the impulse of that you know. You need not to manipulate. You just enter into the flow. No need to manipulate, but you can also get a burst of whatever the impulse that Nawal, that any Nawal got is for you to enter into that, and that is amazingly beautiful. In reality, anyways, there's going to be a benefit. Anyways, you are going to have it. The problem is the way in which we are over pressured by the world to follow patterns of success that mostly are are based on manipulation and
Control.
benefit, profit,
Yeah.
control,
Right.
to to try to stop that idea and release the control. If not, there's going to be several moments in which this same knowledge is going to be against you.
Right.
Because you do want to predict or to understand, and sometimes it's not going to fit your expectations. Then this is the best advice. Go with the flow. Don't enter to manipulate.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the river, I mean, back to the metaphor of the river is stronger than you. You know?
Oh, yeah.
The river is
And
strong.
guess what? And there's another advice now that I know, that I remember. And it is, it's not only bigger or stronger than you. The river is going to be here, and you are going to go. One day you are going to go. So there's no case to play against the river. By the way, let me tell you, all this
Right.
nobody's going to be here forever. So it's better to behave the proper way. Whenever he says the history, he always mimics himself being so incredibly afraid that he was going to be eaten alive. He has no chance to win to this jaguar, and also he was cold, and by the way, injured. He couldn't even run. But then he shows compassion in the jaguar. That for sure should be something amazing that I don't want to see.
If you like this podcast, please support what you like. You can feed the knowledge Feed the Teacher on PayPal.